Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
King Biscuit Power Hour.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Wake and bake.
Check.
Two motivated veteran hosts.
That's a definite check.
And Rubber Duckie, one each on the line.
Check.
Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing today?
We are good to go.
All right.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Heart of a Volunteer Veterans Podcast, episode 005. Are we recording?
Yes, we are recording.
Sweet. Episode 005, Rubber Duckie.
How you doing today, Duckie?
How's it going, guys? Pretty beard.
Hey, I'm Chris. We got our other host, Josh, here. Want to give some shout-outs and some thanks to the OSU Media Department, Chris Notch, Landon Green, and Professor Max Andrews for squaring us away with these sweet digs here. They helped us get the podcast stuff off the ground by, really just giving us some good pointers on getting things started. Also, OSU itself, they're doing great work with veterans through the SVO and just all the way across the campus. And, of course, the Stillwater community. Amazing community. And, of course, Doc Green's local dispensary squared me away the other day, so that's a good thing. Hey, Heart of a Volunteer exists to provide a format for veterans to tell their story. We welcome all veterans who want to share any facet of their service to contact us. Your story deserves to be told.
Yes, we would encourage all the veterans that we have that are listening that want to come onto the show and share their story. Our goals are to collect all 3 million of you who have served in. We want to hear your stories. We want to get the word out and let people know what you do, because they want to know. So contact us if you want to get on, man. I mean, it's too easy.
Too easy.
So what do we got going on today, Chris?
Well, I wanted to say that this morning was very crisp.
It's too crisp.
I got up early, got a good shave, walked outside with a bowl of cereal, and the cold air hit my face. It felt amazing. Real brisk, got me fired up. Magnus wasn't. He didn't want to go outside that early.
He was not
was
feeling
that
it.
cold. Yeah, but yeah. Woke up fired up, ready to go.
Well, that is good, man. How's your week been?
It's been good. It's the anticipation of block leave, of spring break block leave.
It's spring break.
That's right. It's going to be amazing.
But all the college students are super excited about spring break. I would recommend that you be safe and have fun. And make sure you do your homework also if you're in college.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be responsible.
Don't get behind.
So, we had a pretty busy week this week. We're still making preparations for the mental health week that we're going to be hosting here at Oklahoma State University. We're going to be posting the flyers on our Facebook page. I would encourage, if you live in Stillwater or if you live in the area and you have some free time, to come to our events. I believe they're open to everybody, and I would encourage as many people to show up. We're going to be doing an episode, what was it, Tuesday? I believe it's Tuesday from 4 to 6, but I will have to double check that time. But we will post the correct time and everything. So, if you have any questions about it, please hit us up on our Facebook, and we'll give you all the information that you need to know.
Everything. More than enough.
Yes.
More than enough information, for sure.
So, I think it's time to get back. I think we should get to our episode. What do you think, Chris?
I don't know. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what's going to happen on this episode. Nobody does. We've got a great episode. I'm super excited. I'm super excited for it.
Yes.
It's going to be fun.
Yes, John Reid was. I served with John Reid in the Army. He was in the invasion of Iraq, and he was in Afghanistan with me. And John definitely played a key role in. It was my first deployment, so I was new and he was experienced, so he gave me a lot of guidance as far as like how to make sure that we all came back alive. So thank you, John, for your knowledge and experience. I do appreciate that.
All right, ready to kick the show?
I think I am ready to start recording and do the show.
All right.
Well, Facebook world, thank you for joining us, and y'all have a lovely day.
Come check out the episode 005.
Yes, we will be posting the link after we get done.
Nice.
I think that went way better.
I do.
Okay, here we go. We're going to do some clerical stuff real quick.
And yes, so when we look at the local community, it is absolutely amazing the kind of support that we get. A lot of discounts going on out there. The city of Stillwater has a veterans hiring preference program that it's a help if you're out there and you want to get entry level in with the city. There's definitely resources there for you. I would check with your local city government and see if they have some kind of veterans hiring preference. If they do, I would definitely get on board with that.
Hello, everybody. I would like to start off with our monologue. And throughout our branches of service, there are many jobs and opportunities to serve. Each MOS military occupational specialty plays a vital role in accomplishing the missions of each branch at home and abroad. Joining in peacetime looks strange now, but when the world changes in a blink of an eye, your service takes a whole new meaning. Witness the trials and tribulations as war is unquestionably on the table now. The world changed on September 11, 2001, and in its wake are left with over 3 million veterans that lived lives of honor, duty, and sacrifice. The years that followed showed the resiliency of the American fighting man and woman operating in multiple combat environments along the way. Come with us on a journey to share one of these 3 million stories. Immerse yourself and experience the perspective of a soldier on a journey in lands far from home. Look through the eyes of the service member as they are immersed in a world where violence rules the day. Work endlessly to rebuild a fractured country. See the camaraderie built on these deployments rivals the lifetime spent with siblings. Peer into the scene of chaos with a new type of warfare we use to topple a regime. Aggressive, fast-moving in design, to keep the enemy out of step and off balance. Hear about the men and women that paid the ultimate sacrifice, for their sacrifice should never be forgotten. Lastly, remember the people that signed that blank check to the people of our great nation. I would like to introduce John Reid. John, you're on the line.
Hey, how's it going?
How you doing today, buddy?
Hey, welcome, John.
Pretty good. How about you guys?
We're doing fantastic.
Excellent. Excelente.
All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself there, Duckie. I mean, John.
Obviously we know each other. Past couple of years, me and Fisher have got to hang out quite a bit often. Thanks to the internet and Xbox Live. So that's a great thing now that a lot of us get to stay in touch with our veteran compadres through means of the internet, whereas back in the past we might not have had that access.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fisher was chatting with me and said, hey, we're doing this podcast, and I thought it sounded like a cool idea. And he was like, hey, man, you want to come on here and talk a little bit about, what it was like for you when you were in? Sure. Let's give that a shot.
So, for the people that don't know you at home, where are you from?
I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes.
The bluegrass state.
It's actually not a bad place.
It's not. Beautiful state.
One of the most beautiful states in the country.
Yeah, it is. Beautiful state.
All right. Tell us about when did you join the Army?
So I joined the Army into the delayed entry program when I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
I'm not a good formal learner in the classroom, so I didn't do great in high school, mostly because I like to skip a lot and hang out with my friends and goof off. So I was looking for an option. What am I going to do with my future? Graduating high school is impending, and now I've got to figure something out after. Well, I thought long and hard about it and decided that, maybe at some point in time I would like to be a cop, be a police officer. Well, one of the better routes to go that way, I felt, was to join the military and be military police. So I had this idea in my head, but I didn't really step forward to make it happen just yet. I actually received a phone call randomly from a recruiter and got to chatting with him, and he was like, did you ever think about joining the military? And I was like, actually, yeah, I have been thinking about it, and I wouldn't mind coming in to talk to you guys. So we set up an appointment, and I went up to learn about what joining the military was all about. Entering the delayed entry program for a while, actually wound up shipping out to basic July of 2001. So basic training, as you know, for everybody else, for military police, it is, at that time, it was 18 weeks, one station unit training straight. You did not leave to go to AIT. Some people got a little bit of a different experience where their AIT was kind of, 5 days a week. They had the weekends off. For us, it was 18 weeks straight of basic training. We got treated no differently the entire time.
This is true.
Yes. So we show up to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, where the EMP training was taking place. And I get my first ever introduction to the Army. And it was interesting because, you're going into end processing. You meet a couple of drill sergeants. They're pretty nice and relaxed. They get you hurdled in, get your equipment, you get some shots, shave your head. You're staying in these gigantic bunkhouse buildings with hundreds of other soldiers that are all going through end processing. And then finally the day comes along where you're sorted out to the companies that you're going to. These metal cattle trucks pull up. It's just like a small box truck that you would climb into the trailer on the back, and they had some benches and poles. We were not allowed to sit down. The benches and poles were for our bags, and we were instructed to put our face in the bag and pull up in front of the barracks, jump out of the cattle car, and it was just chaos from there. Drill sergeants in your face yelling at you. You couldn't do nothing right. It didn't matter if you did it right. You were corrected on it anyway, and it set the tone. Now, most everybody that served, we all had the same basic training experience for the first 9 weeks.
Nope.
It's pretty similar for a lot of people. We were going through the drilling ceremony, then your basic rifle marksmanship, and then your blue phase at the end. But our blue phase wound up being extremely eventful, to say the least. So we get around to the end of our training, and it's now September, and we wake up, and it's a morning like any other morning, but we're going out to the field today. So we get all our gear, we're in formation, heading out on a road march. I think we marched about 7 or 8 miles and got to our campsite, head in, we start laying out where all the different platoons are going to set up their little camp positions at, and I get direction from the drill sergeant. This is where you're going to be at. Go ahead and dig a hasty fighting position right here, and this is your sector of fire. Watch this. So we dig our fighting position, and while we're in the middle of it, it's still early in the morning because we left before the sun was up. So we get called into formation, and they tell us, or they ask of the group, if you have any relatives or family members that work in the government in or around New York, Washington, D.C., please raise your hands. So these people raised their hands and they pulled them off to the side somewhere. That's when they had informed us that somebody had just flown 2 planes into the World Trade Centers. So this is the first we hear of
wow.
it. Obviously, everybody else knows how that went and saw it on the news, everything else. We were isolated at the time, so we were in the field, with no television, no contact to anybody else.
What was that with all this this chaos going on, and you were in y'all obviously didn't have very much information at the time. What was that initial thought going through your head and your battle buddies?
It was a mix of thoughts. We didn't really know what to think, and there was multiple different theories on what was going on. From down to oh, we're out in the field. It's our field training exercise, and they're messing with us.
Oh yeah, I could see that. Get you pumped up, get you focused,
get you in the spirit of it, and which, I mean, in hindsight, that would be obviously a messed up thing, but it took a couple hours, and I think finally somebody had something going on that morning. They had to go to the JAG office, and so they were there talking to a lawyer, and they were watching it live on Fox News, and they came back to the group and told everybody that, no, it is absolutely real. I saw it on the news. And, then the whole tone of everything had changed. I went from, joining in a peacetime that I thought that, hey, join the military. I'm going to go be police and do this for a few years, get out, come back home, and could be a cop in my hometown. And that was not going to be the case anymore.
Did with the world changing the way it did, how did it change with your family or anything? Did they now that the stakes were a lot higher?
Absolutely it did. I mean, the whole opinion of joining of me having gone to the military now was parents were scared that I was going to have to go somewhere and all that. I mean, rightfully so. That's what the military does, and we were just attacked.
I think a lot of people, they forget that, we always hear the stories about people that joined, after it happened. We never get a chance to hear the stories about the soon to be service members that are going through training, locked in the breach, ready to be launched, knowing that you're just months away from, going to a unit and going down range, which you have no idea what that even means. You know what I mean? Like, really means, because you're brand new.
Yeah.
You think it's you might even get the impression that what you're doing right then and there, occupying a bivouac site, is what it's going to look like during deployment, but it's not even close.
Yeah.
That would, I would just invite everybody, to think about those folks that, that joined, not knowing, but while they're there, finding out that it is actually happening.
The game is real.
Yeah. So, and you're talking about not knowing anything. Man, I was military ignorant. I didn't come from a big military lineage. My grandfather served. My brother was in the Navy for, a short stint. My dad, he was a truck driver. He didn't serve. So I didn't have any real calling from my family of a long lineage to go serve in the military. It just kind of popped up, like I said, as a career path. And now, it's real. It's real. And, we have to tighten up and make sure that we get all this training right and learn it, because we're going to be using it for real.
Right.
The stakes are a lot higher now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like when I joined, I knew I was in high school. Yeah, I saw the towers fell, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to join the Army.
Yep.
And but to have that perspective, it's like you join and then things change. That's thank you for sharing that with us, Duckie.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I keep calling him Duckie.
I've been talking to him a lot this week. I call him Duckie.
It's a habit, know. I think my wife even calls you Duckie.
Yeah.
So, after basic training, where did you go after that?
So, let's talk about how the military does you sometimes. So, when everybody knows when you're in process, they're going to ask you, give us 3 overseas locations and a stateside location that you would like to go to. And so I fill out the form and I tell them, all right, I want to do, I said, Germany, Japan, Hawaii, or back to Kentucky, being my home state. And so silly me, under the false pretenses that that's probably going to happen, I get my orders in basic training and I'm going to Korea, which I think the military does that to play with you a little bit.
Well,
I had a couple of guys that I know, they signed up for Korea and they sent them to Germany instead.
Well, here's the thing, man. If you put Hawaii down, what they're doing is they're saying, well, Korea is an extension of the Pacific. So there you go. You shouldn't have put that down.
Go.
That's what got you. Yeah.
But so I knew nothing about Korea at all. I knew very little about the Korean War. I knew that it happened. That's pretty much about it at the time. I was a young kid. And so I get a crash course in American history with the Korean War. That was interesting to learn all about, and to be a part of that. Korea is a fascinating country. It's you're in South Korea. You hear stories about how North Korea is, but now you're down in South Korea, and it's almost like being in America. Just some of the signs are in Korean, and everybody's Asian. But a lot of people speak English, and most of them were pretty welcoming of us being there. The older generation obviously remembers why we're there and what happened. So they're grateful for that. Showing up to Korea after September 11th, they had it set up with us being, at an escalated threat con level. So we had armed MPs working the gates. That's what our job wound up being. And for months, I worked, I stood on a gate and at night shift in the winter, freezing cold.
Those are the best kind. That's the kind of guard shifts that build character.
Yes. And, after that, being cold wasn't a problem no more. I was used to it.
Yeah.
So we finally get to a point where we transition off the gates, and I get to do a little road work.
Could you explain what road work is for our listeners?
So road work for an MP is actually being police. So I get to test out my first time stepping into a patrol vehicle. Also happens to be the first time I ever drove stick shift. We had stick shift SUVs in Korea. So I got to learn how to drive a stick shift thanks to the military. And
that's where I learned too.
And so it was interesting going around. At nighttime for MPs, depending upon the time of the week, we'll have different security checks that we have to do around the base. You might find an unsecured door on a building somewhere. I had that happen a couple times, and for one example, there was a school on Camp Walker in Daegu where I was stationed at, and they had left the door open. I had to walk through the school in the middle of the night and clear the building to make sure nobody was inside of it. Then we try to get a hold of whoever's responsibility it is for that facility to come down and properly secure it. And then aside, normally during the day, you're going to be doing traffic operations or handling any calls that come out. Obviously, at night on a military post, there's not a whole lot going on. Everybody's asleep, getting ready for PT in the morning. Over in Korea, anyway, there's not a lot of civilian traffic on the post. So do the road work for a while. Nothing really interesting ever happened on the road for me. Wrote a couple tickets here and there that were, part of being an MP. You got to do your job and enforce the rules. I wasn't a big fan of writing tickets. I didn't really enjoy doing it. It was extra paperwork. But it's your job, and that's what the military has me out here doing. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it right.
Hey, let me ask you this here, John. I know we were talking about the being an MP and pulling over like another soldier. Do you think that being in the same uniform, kind of when you do pull them over, you're kind of like, oh man, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's even closer to same
Yeah, absolutely.
because of the uniform.
Absolutely, same team, man.
Yeah,
but you didn't stop at that stop sign.
right.
So I'm gonna have to do this. Now, I don't want to. I'm sure that not everybody wants to do all of the things that the military makes you do, but they are your job. And we know that people are going to break traffic laws on the post. So if you don't come back after an 8-hour shift and you didn't see at least one person, break a traffic law, you probably weren't really paying attention while you were out there on patrol.
Or you were setting up somewhere they could see you and they wouldn't do it. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my thing is there would be MPs and they would be right at the friction point where people go fast. Like you come around this corner, when you come out, you're 10 miles an hour faster. They'll set up like right before it to like, oh, and then no tickets. And they just sit there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about.
And that's exactly why they do it. They know that area is a hotbed for that. And we don't need to sit here and write tickets because military police, the motto is assist, protect, defend.
Yeah.
Right. It's not correct, punish, and impugn the members of the military. So if I know that people are habitually speeding in a certain area, why wouldn't we put a car there to just go ahead and give them a little reality check? Hey, remember, we're out here. Abide by the rules, so we don't have to correct you.
Yeah, the big thing is, it's about safety. You know what I'm saying? It's like, people don't think like, hey, 10 miles an hour, that whatever. Speed limit was 25. I'm going 35. But there's a lot of people running on post. Doing PT. There's a lot of kids out there that are enjoying the great stuff that post. They spend a lot of money on there for families. Dependents, so they can feel welcome. And the thing is, we do the same thing at the unit level. It's like we do safety briefs. We do tons of briefings to prevent things from happening. So that, definitely the MP Corps, man, they're there to protect soldiers from themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And it's
exactly because we are a danger to ourselves.
Yeah. And hats off. Because like I told you, John, I never had any problems with MPs. In fact, anytime I ever needed them, and typically it was somebody in the barracks. They were right there, and they were ready to do their job, and it was always good to have them around.
Yeah,
that's one thing at Campbell, like going to the infantry barracks, and they'd be doing something they shouldn't be doing, and it's like, come on, guys, it's like I'm not trying to hook you up. I don't want your first sergeant to come over here and do whatever he's going to do, but it's not going to be good. Just go do what you're doing in a different location so that people don't call us.
Absolutely. Like, I don't want to fill out this paperwork. I don't want to call your first sergeant. I don't want to talk to him. He doesn't want to talk to me. This is not something we're happy about doing when it happens. But it happens, unfortunately, and some people do get hemmed up on some things. So we do a little patrol, stuff around Korea. We're doing some training here and there when we get the time. Obviously, motor pool Mondays are a big thing. Now, for an MP, what that means is that it's Sunday night and you work third shift. Motor pool Monday comes around. You're at the motor pool at 9 a.m. to PMCS some vehicles. So PMCS is your preventative maintenance checks. We got to stay battle ready at all times. These Hummers have to be able to roll out at a moment's notice. So we're down there making sure they're not leaking oil, making sure the tires are full, making sure it starts, everything's working good with it. And you might have worked a 13-hour shift because you had to go in and do PMCS on your trucks and do patrol the night before.
It's the point you were talking about as far as like the war never ended technically in South Korea.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
And I think people sometimes forget that it's like Korea is you kind of can you explain to us kind of like what that was kind of what that entailed as far as like war could possibly break out?
Yeah, I mean, for anybody who watches the news and what's been going on in North Korea over the last few years, I mean, these were always kind of real threats for everybody that were on the peninsula. Everybody in America is worried about North Korea testing long-range weaponry. Well, South Korea's short range. We're in distance already. They have artillery rounds that can hit down into South Korea. So this is a real threat all the time for you while you're in Korea, that if they decided they wanted to kick it back off, and launch an attack, you're on the receiving end right off the bat.
It's a lot of guns pointed at South Korea.
Neutralize. Yeah. Hey, so John, so you went from Korea. Where did where'd you go from there?
So we did my standard year in Korea,
Mm-hmm.
and I got you get to the point where you do a year overseas and you get a little bit more preferential treatment for your next duty station. So I requested to go to Fort Knox, Fort Eustis, or Fort Belvoir, because like I said, my career goal in the military was learn how to be a police officer. I wanted to go to a non-deployable unit for MPs and learn more about being a police officer. But the military decided it had different plans for me, and they assigned me to Fort Campbell. So as soon as I got orders to Fort Campbell and the lovely 101st Airborne Division, I knew very well where we were going once I arrived there. I arrived to Fort Campbell in January of 2003, and I got assigned to the 194th Military Police Company. Very, very, very shortly after that, we knew that we were going to be going to Iraq, so we started ramping up training. Now, a lot of people may not know that there are two sides to the military police corps. You have your law enforcement, gate guard duty in the garrison, but in combat, it is a similar but different role. So we start learning about presence patrols, patrolling MSRs, looking for IEDs on the side of the roads, ambush contact drills, live fire exercises where we're using live ammunition for these drills. We did a couple training sessions at the shoot house at Fort Campbell, which is basically just a building that is designed as separate individual rooms. And it's got some pretty thick walls in it that are filled up with some bullet-resistant materials. And you go in with live rounds in teams, kicking in doors and clearing rooms with targets in them. So you're entering a room. Yeah. And you want to talk, that's when the military started getting fun. Is we're really getting into this stuff now, and we've got live ammunition, and I've got two guys behind me with live ammunition, and we're going into this room, and I trust that they're not going to accidentally shoot me in the back.
It's always a good thing.
Yes, it's a very good thing. So it finally comes around, and around April 1st, we have our family members down to Fort Campbell, and we load up on buses, and we are off to the airplane to go to Kuwait. We arrive in Kuwait into a gigantic camp that was like a tent city for an in-processing center, and there were multiple nations' troops there. There were the English, the Australians, all kinds of different nations that were all participating in this.
And this is I was just talking to Josh. That place there in Kuwait's called Camp Buehring.
Yeah.
It may have been. It may have been.
Camp Buren.
But it was a lot different.
Yeah.
I was so tired, and we were there for so short of a time that I do not remember.
Yeah. A lot. Well, if you say the name, a lot of people will cringe. They'll get that, 140-degree sweat going down their back in the Porta-John.
Oh, my goodness.
It was
heat.
ridiculous.
Yes. So we were the 194th Military Police, because 716th Military Police Battalion was attached to the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force for the invasion of Iraq. They, obviously, the Marines went in before us, and we were in a holding state in Kuwait until they were ready for what they needed the military police for. So we went to this camp that seemed like it was in the middle of nowhere in the desert in Kuwait. We had a sand berm all the way around it. I never really got to see past over it much, and it was just dirt on the other side of it as far as I could see. But this was where we were going to stay at, and we're instructed that we're in range of Iraq's what missile systems they do have, so we need to start building sandbag bunkers. And I remember building my own sandbag bunker in the heat in Kuwait and thinking to myself, just launch the damn missile so I don't have to build this bunker anymore. It's so hot out here. And waking up in the mornings there and getting in full mop gear, which, your full chemical gear, rubber boots, chemical coat, chemical pants, your gas mask, your helmet, your body armor, get your weapon, your 35-pound rucksack, and we're going for a run around the camp. And it's 95 degrees outside.
I love that.
Yes, that's where you became. That's where we really became soldiers at.
On a point to that, for the people who don't know what, as far as like the gas mask with your mop gear on, like that gas mask restricts your breathing by a lot. And to go out on do some kind of physical activity with it, running, I mean, you'll be gassed. I mean, it'll wear you out. So,
yes.
Just to kind of clarify that. Please continue.
So we finally get to the point where it's time to roll out, and we pack all our stuff up from these nice canvas tents with the wood flooring in them that we were staying in, and load up into Hummers, and we drive into Iraq. And if I remember it all correctly, we wound up going into Iraq on April 20th, which was also my 19th birthday. So happy birthday to me. We're going to Iraq.
420.
So, yes. So we crossed over the border, which was a big, pretty much a big sand berm, and now we're in Iraq. We went up to a checkpoint that was on our route to get to the city that we were going to, stayed the night there, and then we finally set off on our way to get to Al-Qut, Iraq. Al-Qut was a small town, and if I can remember exactly where it was at, it was right on the river, and I want to say it was south of Baghdad.
Yeah, sometimes we gotta.
So it was the
look on the maps.
Double check. I don't want to tell anybody the wrong thing here. So yeah, it was in the kind of the western region of Iraq, or eastern region of Iraq. I'm sorry, a little bit south on the bend, not quite southeast. Cute little town. Cute little town. We pull up to this old Iraqi Air Force base that it was a couple of airplane hangars and a small airstrip, and more notably, it was a bunch of dirt and concertina wire. We pull in, and the Marines have got all their little individual man tents set up, nice little nylon, like Coleman style camping tents.
Hell yeah.
And we start talking to them. They come over, and we start exchanging pleasantries, and they're checking out our gear. We're checking out their stuff, and they're super jealous of our nice M4s and our Hummers and all that. And then we pull out our tents, and the jealousy fades because we have like Vietnam era hex tents with no flooring in them. So we're sleeping, on an army cot in a hex tent with a sand floor. it was it was interesting.
I
I
bet.
thought to, yeah, I don't know why I had it in my head that it would be a little nicer than that when we got there, but um, so we starting on our missions, and I remember that first morning I woke up, and after sleeping in Al Kut for the first night, and I get up and I walk outside, and it's so cold outside. It's still dark, sun hasn't come up yet, freezing cold. And I grabbed my nice black, fresh issued fleece jacket that the military is kind enough to provide us, and put that on and head out to my truck to start getting my weaponry together and mount it up on the truck for the day's mission. And I remember having to shave in the mirror of the Hummer, and it was so cold. The water was so cold. And I asked somebody, I said, does anybody know what the temperature is? And they said it's in the 80s. But it was so hot during the day that big of a temperature drop, it just felt so cold when it hit you. It was a shock.
Yeah.
So we start out on a mission, and we get into MSR patrols. And MSR patrols for military police is just presence patrols on the main supply route. We're looking for anything that seems amiss. So we're running up and down, the MSRs. You guys remember them by name.
But they change them all the time.
They change them all the time. But so we were running up and down MSRs, and basically just waiting for something to happen, waiting for somebody to shoot at us, or an IED to go off, or to see anything that just was amiss.
So,
when we did that, we did that on 12-hour shifts for quite a few months, it seemed like.
So, this being your first time, I mean, putting all your training, it's like what you learned in the schoolhouse and from your first unit to actually doing it on the battlefield. Can you give us kind of like...
Paint that picture for us, man.
Yeah. Can you paint the picture for us as far as like the correlation between your training and actually doing it?
Yeah. So, I mean, we trained on trolling routes now. I mean, it's just basically for the infantry, you're walking down a trail, we're driving down the street. We're looking the same as you guys are looking. We're just out there observing, waiting for something to happen, hoping we see something before it happens.
Mm-hmm.
We specifically trained on moving as a squad in vehicles. That's what MPs do. We're mounted, and we get to where we need to be fast. So that was, the biggest part of our first role when we got there was doing that MSR patrol. I said a couple months. I think it was only like a couple weeks. And then everything seemed like it was going on for so much longer than it actually did when we were there. So shortly after we did some MSR patrols, we got into going to the city for the first time. And I remember, being so anxious that first night to see what, an Iraqi city was like. And we pulled out of the airfield. We come down this dirt road along the river and take this left onto the dam that runs over the river. And then you can see Al Kut down on your right. And it's just this little, Arabian style town. It looks like something out of a cartoon or something like Aladdin. It was aside from being beat up a little bit from all the conflict, to me, I thought it was pretty gorgeous. It was not exactly what I expected in Iraq at all, to be just like this desert land. It was kind of green. There was palm trees and tons of people out, people fishing in the river, people fishing with dynamite in the river, which was very interesting. That is a normal everyday thing over there, that they will take a boat out in the river and throw a stick of dynamite out into the water and then just catch the fish that come up.
There's places here in the States where gentlemen do that stuff too.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
very sportingly though.
But
you know?
but imagine
You gotta
going to downtown in your major city, throwing dynamite off the side of the boat and it exploding, and everybody on the sidewalk just going about their day like nothing's happening. People would freak out if you did that in America.
They call that sociological relativism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means. I'm gonna look that up.
So we get to doing our first patrol and interacting with the locals, and that was it was absolutely mind-boggling that they were the way that they clamored to us. When we were driving up to Alcoot, we saw people on the side of the road trying to sell us stuff and waving at us and whatnot. But when we got to Alcoot and down into the city is when it really hit that it was almost like being a celebrity. Everybody just flocked to wherever the American soldiers were at. They wanted to see you guys. They wanted to talk to you. A lot of them wanted to try to get like a little piece of memorabilia from you, be it like, just they wanted a water bottle or a pen or $1 or anything that you might be able to spare off to them, probably so that they could go back and tell stories of how they got this from some American soldier. And it was pretty wild. We went over there with the idea of, we're going to war. We're going to go over there and we're going to kick some ass, and then we get there and it wasn't what we thought. It wasn't what I thought anyway. We were not fighting against an opposing army. There wasn't like an enemy that was present all the time. It could have just been anybody, but it also could have not been anybody at all, depending upon where you were at or the time of day that it was. We were surrounded by children everywhere. They were so excited to see us. And so we go into basically kind of win the hearts and minds. We go into military police mode. We start patrolling the cities. We divide it up into different sectors, different platoons get different shifts. And every night we roll and we patrol our sector and we look for anything that was going amiss. I worked night shift for quite a while. I worked day shift for quite a while. Now I tell you, they both have their pluses and minuses. There was nothing worse than being a gunner on the top of that Hummer sticking out of the turret, and it's 110 degrees outside today, and you're just covered in sweat. But then the inverse of that is you work a night shift and it's nice, but then you go back to the camp and you got to try to sleep through the hottest part of the day, sweating something awful while you're trying to sleep.
Double-edged
sword.
So
we went for quite a while doing patrols like that, basically getting exhausted. And I remember I had my first heat injury. That was lovely. I come back from mission one night, and so after finishing a 12-hour patrol, we pack our stuff up and we head back for the evening, get back, change into our PTs. The sun's coming up and we're going to go for a run. So we do a little short run down the camp, and it's getting hot outside. And I remember telling my platoon sergeant, I was like, Sergeant, I don't feel all that great. You think it would be all right if I went over to the medics and took a TILTS test? A TILTS test is where they test your hydration level,
right.
See how well you're doing. And so that involves laying down on a cot for 5 minutes, and they take your blood pressure, and then you stand up for 5 minutes, and they take your blood pressure. And I remember standing up, and then I remember waking up to the medic hitting me in the head. They're patting me on the cheek like, hey, John, wake up. So I had blacked out there and had to get an IV and had that whole fun experience. I felt like that was kind of all part of being in Iraq. To check that box off.
Yeah, you know what? You talk about a heat injury. It's train smarter, not harder. And one of the last PT events we ever did in Iraq, I had one of my soldiers go down. And the thing is, it's like we're getting ready to go back to Hawaii. We didn't have to go on a run all the way around the airfield, but people were doing that, like getting ready to go back, redeploy.
Getting back into that.
Yeah, so it's like get back into the into doing PT, and so we put out water cans, water points, and everything else. Had a chase vehicle, and we made it all the way back to the end, and JD just he went down.
He wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I look back and it's like you gotta train smart, man, not hard.
Yeah.
And that was the point that proved it to me. And that's everything changed after that.
Yeah. Yep. So, we continued on that route for a while, and I think one of the most, the two most memorable nights in Al-Kut for me were everybody that served around this time probably remembers up in Mosul, the 101st got into a little spat with Uday and Qusay, and they killed Uday and Qusay, which were Saddam's sons. The night that happened, I believe that we actually held back off patrols. We just decided to let the town process that in the way that they see fit, which apparently was a big celebration because all we heard was gunfire all night long up in the sky.
Yeah, you don't want to be out there. You don't want to be out there when there's celebratory fire going on.
Yeah, it's just unnecessary.
It's not worth it. No, not even close.
Yeah, so we let them have their night and celebrate that out a little bit. And then, the following evening, we went back out and continued on patrols. Now, the whole time we were over there, most everybody was pretty receptive to us. They were pretty cooperative, pretty friendly. We did a lot with the local economy. I remember getting our uniforms cleaned at a dry cleaners down in downtown Al-Kut. Stopping for food, drinks at the bazaars, and we had a little ice cream shop that this guy ran right across from the police station. That was a nice thing to have in Iraq when it was good and hot outside.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I remember the guy's name. We all called him Mickey. We called him Mickey because he had this big painting of Mickey Mouse that he had done, that he displayed out in front of his ice cream shop, and he would always come over to the police station to talk to us. And he was so excited that we had came because of the oppression from the previous regime, that now that the Americans are here and they have some freedom, he can freely display his art that he's done without having to worry about getting in trouble for doing any of it. And that hit me kind of deep. I was like, I can't even fathom what it would be like to live that way, because we take so much that we have in America for granted versus what other people in the world might be dealing with. So that was I had a little bit of a sense of pride in what we were doing, for the fact that these people were getting to experience a different side of life where they weren't terrified of this over-repressive regime coming down on them for expressing artistic talent.
And they're not going to come there and give you a spanking.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to take your life.
So we continued on about that, and then on patrol, I want to say it was in Al-Kut, was the first time that I actually had to see something horrible happen. And we got a call to go out to a traffic accident. It was pretty much all the information that we had for it. We show up on site, and there's a smashed dump truck. The guy was driving down the street with the bed of his dump truck in the up position, and unfortunately, he drove underneath of a concrete pedestrian overpass, and the entire thing collapsed on top of the cab of the truck when the bed of the dump truck hit it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, common sense varies, they say.
Yeah. So that was not a very pretty scene at all. Anybody who's ever done first responder work or showed up to a fatality traffic accident knows how gruesome those can be. And it was compounded even worse because this is a small town. This guy's family showed up to the traffic accident, and they were just completely upset and distraught. It felt awful for us to have to sit there and secure the scene, and assist the Iraqi services that handle these kind of things when they show up, in making sure that they have unabridged access to get to the the accident and remove what they need to remove and take care of things as is with, their cultural standards.
Right.
So that was, that was an awful day to have to witness that and that family's loss, and we all felt it kind of too, because it was, you don't want to see these things happen to people that don't necessarily deserve it,
I think that's the kind of the beauty about our services and our MP Corps is like we take personal ownership of our areas. As far as these are our temporary homes, and we're going to treat it like such. That's a good example.
Absolutely. I mean, and to add on to that, we have to deal with the retaliation of our own actions. What we do in this city can come back to us. We're here every night. You can't go out and just be a wrecking force within a town that you're essentially trying to protect.
Mm-hmm.
It's and to a degree, I met people, I met Iraqi nationals that were our friends. We had interpreters that were Iraqi nationals. The children that hung out around the police station to talk to us, they would run errands for us. We'd give them a little bit of money. They might run down and get us sandwiches or, kebabs, whatever they had over in the markets in Iraq. And, so they were all part of it with us, So Al-Qud was a crazy town, little bitty town. And, I think we had a few incidents in Al-Qud, nothing super major. I remember, my good friend, Livingston suckered me into this walking patrol one night. And we did about a 15-mile walking patrol through Al-Qud. And lowly Private Reid, it was my responsibility to carry the saw and the radio, which I was not a big fan of because I felt like I was the big target. But
hey John,
Yes.
How tall are you?
I am 6 foot.
And how much did you weigh back then?
Back then, I was 170 pounds.
Good Lord.
Yep.
Yeah, you were
And that
skinny guy.
was 3 MREs a day.
That was too
We were
many.
burning.
That
We
was
were
too
burning through so much calories that I couldn't keep up with it. Couldn't keep up with it. We took some brief contact on a walking patrol one night. Some fire was exchanged. Nobody was injured, thankfully. We had one incident at the police station in Al-Qud where we had a sentry on top of the police station, and I won't go too much into detail because that is his story to tell. But he took a little bit of grenade shrapnel to the arm. Thankfully, that's all that was.
You should reach out to him. Let him come on to our show.
I may do that for it, see if he's interested in telling those stories. But thankfully, he was a good friend of mine, and thankfully that is all the worst that was. And then shortly after all that happened, I actually got a Red Cross message that my grandfather had passed away, and I was going to be going home to go to his funeral. There was no leave at the time set up. There was like a mid-tour leave like they did later on. I got picked up by a plane at Al-Qud and dropped off at Jabra Air Force Base, and had to figure out how to get back to Kuwait, or to the actual out processing camp in Kuwait, and make it back home. That was intense, going from this crazy war zone right back into America. Just normal life. I'm going to go see all my friends and family again. And, handled that short little 2-week break from everything. And then it was right back on the plane to head back over. And when I come back, I learned that, our unit has picked up and moved to Kerbala. So it's a new town that we're going to be going to. It was a much bigger city. that's what I came back to was Kerbala, Iraq. So everything I had learned about the town we were in now, I had to relearn about a new town. Kerbala was quite a different experience from Al-Qud. Like I said, it was much bigger. The game seemed realer in Kerbala than it did Al-Qud. We start out on patrols in Al-Qud, and I, at this time now, I had been moved up to being the driver for the lieutenant of the platoon. I'd started off as her gunner, and our previous driver had been sent back for a medical reason. So I took over as the driver position, and I was given a new gunner. And we handled a lot of the duties at the police station itself. So the lieutenant would typically work out of the police station unless she wanted to go out on a patrol for a particular reason. I might be working the radio, or I might be in processing prisoners into the Kerbala jail that the Iraqi National Police had brought in for whatever reasons.
So you guys were assisting, y'all were kind of setting up the law enforcement operations for the Iraqi nationals. Like, was it kind of like, hey, this is how you set up a station, this is how you do it? Was that?
Yeah, I mean,
what y'all were doing?
The structures were there. They have their own way of doing it. The police was not a foreign concept to them. But, after everything that was going down, we had to reestablish it, basically. They needed to staff it better. And we assisted with all the facets of doing such.
Mm-hmm.
We had a platoon that was dedicated to running a police academy for new recruits to the Iraqi police. So, it just so happened that my platoon was tasked with patrol duty down in the city. And so we did patrols for quite a few nights. Most of them were pretty uneventful. I remember at one point in time, we did have a truck get hit with an RPG that they did not remove the traveling pin out of it. And it actually punched through the back of the truck and went into the back hatch of the Hummer and was just sitting there, undetonated. We had to call EOD out to come take care of that thing. And, that was pretty much about the most eventful thing I remember happening that I was directly around in Kerbala until we got to October. And October was a bad month, obviously. We talked about it previously a little bit. October 16th came around. And we had a little bit, we had an incident where we lost 3 of the soldiers from our battalion. And, to give some backstory to that a little bit, the colonel had come down and obviously wanted to partake in a little bit of what it was that the troops themselves were doing, and, make sure that he got to experience it as well. Because, a colonel's job is not necessarily the same as a lowly private's job is. And he wanted to see what it was like out there in the city, rightfully so. So they set out to do a little bit of patrol, and they come across some gentlemen that were running some kind of a checkpoint. I do remember that night I was at the police station, just not too many blocks away from where it all happened at. And out of nowhere, we hear a couple gunshots go off, and then just an eruption of gunfire and a couple of explosions. And there was a lot of chaos over the radio. We're all running around, packing our trucks up, getting ready to do whatever it is that we need to do. And obviously, being the lieutenant's driver, logistical aspects of helping the lieutenant organize platoons and the teams of the squads and everything is a little more paramount than running out. So I'm back helping the lieutenant with whatever it is that she requires of her team, and basically just have to sit there while the whole thing unfolds around me. And it was absolutely awful. Come to find out at the end of it, our colonel was shot and fatally shot and killed. And two of the sergeants of our teams were killed as well. So we'll go. Yeah, their names, because they deserve to be said, are Colonel Kim S. Orlando, Staff Sergeant Joseph Bellavia, and Sergeant Sean Greeley. They were all great men. Obviously, anybody who puts their hand up and decides to go over there and take part in our military is a great person, in my opinion. I didn't know them very, very, very closely, but I knew them well enough to where it hurt. We had our services for them over in Iraq. That was extremely emotional for everybody. It was an experience like no other. That now it was so real that we had lost people, and then we had to turn around the next night and go right back on patrol. We didn't skip a beat.
That's tough, man. And the thing is, I can tell you from the leadership standpoint, that's a hard thing for a leader to do, to take his or hers, troops back out after, a dynamic incident. It's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah.
And I know it's tough on the soldiers, and I think that's one of the hardest things. It's tough on the leader because they know you're destroying your folks.
Yeah, and it wasn't even they weren't destroying us. I think it was probably harder on a leader than it is on a soldier, just a regular platoon line soldier, because we were mad. We were furious with the whole situation. Like, here we are over here, trying to do our best and set things up in this city, and we want these people to have a better life, and then we got slapped in the face like that. It was very, very, very frustrating, and everybody was ready to get back out there and try to figure out what it was that happened, and possibly find the people who were responsible for it all, and and handle that appropriately. Unfortunately, when it all finally came to fruition, they had moved on. There was no tracking them down. In a situation like that, MPs are not necessarily a fighting force, even though we are very, very heavily armed. But we're not going to stick around for it to get even worse. They grabbed the casualties, they loaded them in the vehicles, and they got the hell out of there. They broke contact, got the hell out of there. And tried their best to render medical aid to the injured, and unfortunately, it just not everybody was able to be aided. So that changed the whole element of the deployment right there for the entire battalion. We got a new colonel come in midway through the whole thing. Colonel Hayes, it was the first time I got to meet him.
He's a good man.
Yeah, he's a very good man. So now we're still back into patrols. Very shortly after this whole incident comes down, I get a positional promotion. I'm made a team leader as a specialist.
That's what I'm talking about.
Not quite been in long enough to be a sergeant yet, but experienced enough to do the job, and the military wants to put me in that position and groom me up there. So I get moved to a different platoon, as is pretty standard with military police. You don't want to go be a team leader in a platoon with all your friends. And I meet my new team, Private Walls, Private Chahal. They were hard-charging individuals. And I get told, like, our new mission now, 4th Platoon was the platoon that was in charge of doing the police academy. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of instructing at the police academy, which was interesting because I had never ever done anything of that sort, and was not big at talking in front of a crowd of people or at all. And I remember going in my first day and getting assigned to teach these Iraqi police officers about domestic violence and the misconceptions that we have with how the relationship dynamics are with men and women in Iraq. So I'm explaining to these guys one day about, some of the domestic violence laws of America, and we're running long behind in class. And I remember this, we were probably a good 2 hours past what I was supposed to release these guys at, but I had to cover this material on this day because we had a schedule to keep.
Holy cow, man. What are you doing?
Hey, man.
You're waiting for an insider threat to happen.
There is a lot
Right.
of information when you start talking about domestic violence, all right?
Yeah. So I remember, I'll never forget one of these Iraqi police raising their hand up and spouting something out in Arabic, and everybody in the class laughing, and me asking my interpreter, like, hey, man, what did he say? And he said that, if you don't release him soon, there's going to be some domestic violence in his home because his wife is going to want to know where he's been at.
Exactly.
So the teaching at the police academy was a pretty short experience. Shortly after that, we moved off to it was around Christmas, and we tried to work a schedule to give everybody a little bit of time off, like at least a day off, to relax for Christmas. Luckily, my platoon drew Christmas Day, so we had that day off. That was nice. October 26th, we set off into the city for a day patrol to relieve the platoon that was currently working day patrol. And I got assigned to run the back end security on the police station entry point. And good personal friend of mine, Greenhall, was doing the old processing prisoners into the jail that I used to do. So I was kind of back and forth helping him out and checking on my team, making sure that they had everything they needed. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear a couple booms, and somebody steps outside, and then they say, it sounds like somebody's trying to maybe walk mortars into the police station. So get in your truck and bunker down just in case. And then shortly after that, the most earth-shattering explosion that I've ever heard in my life went off, and glass flew from every building for 300 meters everywhere, and it started raining car parts down in the back of the police station. And I remember now I'm a car guy, so this stood out to me pretty well. I remember the trim piece that typically runs right at the bottom of your windshield, and your windshield wiper area on the outside of your car. I remember that piece landing on the hood of my Hummer, and as soon as it hit, I knew exactly what happened. I was like, somebody just blew up a car bomb.
VBED.
And
Vehicle-borne IED.
yes. So instantly I jump out of my truck and run around to use it for cover, instruct the gunner to load the weapon and cover the front entrance, and we start hearing gunfire. And we're like, oh, okay, it's going down now. And I'm looking down the end of the road, and it's the Iraqi police. They're firing their AKs up in the air to disperse the crowd that's around them. And I just couldn't believe that they would be, that's how things are done there. But, it's in a situation where we just took a vehicle bomb. You're firing off a weapon around a bunch of American soldiers. Like, this is how friendly fire incidents happen. People are in the moment, anxious, and you see somebody else on the other end of the road that has a weapon, and they're firing it. You may make a mistake. Luckily for us, we were observant, noticed that it was the police. They were not pointing at us in any way, so we didn't engage them. And we hear another 2 explosions off in the distance. At this point in time, I'm rendering first aid to people because this was a large government building next to the police station, and there was people with cuts and bruises and scrapes of every type. I'm rendering first aid to anybody who's walking out to my truck. I was a combat lifesaver at the time, so I carried a medical bag with me, and I'm bandaging up everybody I can. the medics come back and start giving me a hand, and somebody sends me out to the front of the police station to assist with, wounded out there and other things that are going on. And that's when I first got a glimpse of what had happened. And there was a crater in the middle of the street that was deeper than I am tall. So we discussed earlier, I'm 6 feet tall. If I stood in the bottom of this crater, I wouldn't have been able to see out of it.
That's a big bomb.
Huge.
There was a burned up Iraqi police car that unfortunately 2 men were in. They took probably some of the worst damage out of that explosion. They were obviously deceased. That was awful to see. Our lieutenant was injured in the leg, I believe. It was mass. So many people injured and carried so many people to different places. So our lieutenant took some shrapnel, and he had to go out on a medevac. We had one soldier in our unit, and I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember her name, but she had taken some shrapnel to the arm and actually refused a medevac. And they basically just, patched her up the best they could, and she went ahead and continued to work with the rest of the platoon because she didn't want to leave everybody behind.
Hard charger.
Mm-hmm.
Hard charger.
Dedicated.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
I've told people about that all the time throughout history. When they've asked me, my opinion on women in the military, and I tell them the story about her taking that piece of shrapnel out of that car bomb to the arm and charging on, and they're talking about letting women in combat roles in the Army, and I'm like, buddy, they're already in them.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen it firsthand. They're fighting with us. They're there. So that was a wild experience with the car bomb thing, man. We lost. We didn't lose any soldiers from our unit in that. We lost a guy we called Cigarette Ali. He sold cigarettes outside of the front of the police station. Unfortunately, he was a little too close to the thing when it went down. And then we had another kid, we called him Football Head because he had a misshapen head. But he took, I believe, like part of the engine block actually wound up hitting him in the legs, and it broke his legs. And we actually wound up going to visit him in the hospital and making sure that he was okay, and taking him some supplies and candy and stuff to make it a little better for him. And glad that he made it out okay, because he was a good kid, man. He used to, he was one of the kids that ran errands for us, or he'd have a shoe shine brush or a hard bristle brush to get that dirt out of your DCU boots, and we would throw him a couple bucks, man. Like, hey, can you knock this mud and stuff off my boots for me? And he'd take care of it. He was a awesome little kid, and it was a shame that he had to get caught up in that for essentially just wanting to hang out with the military police and earn a few dollars here and there, helping us out with little side jobs that we couldn't necessarily do ourselves, to go run down to the market and grab a drink or something.
Hey, John, question for you. Do you know if anybody's ever reached out to that to the local kid that was hurt? See what he's doing now?
I couldn't say. I have no idea. Everything moved so fast after that, and on to my next deployment, that just it wasn't a thing I could ever follow up on.
Yeah. What? I would challenge you, man, to talk to some of the people that work with like the interpreters quite a bit. See if they didn't maintain contact with the interpreters. See if you can't get some info. That'd be a good update to bring on here, man.
I think it would too.
Because like you said, there's lots of the local nationals, man. They're good folks. Until you do something stupid, and they're like, and to them it comes down to freedom and survival, just like it does for us.
Absolutely.
If you give them good stuff, they're going to give you what they're made of, which is good. They're good people.
They are. They
so
really are.
I'd like to know. Personally, I'd like to know how it turned out for them.
Okay.
I think that'd be good. I mean, because you build relationships with some of these local nationals. You spend a lot of the interpreters, like, they spend the equal amount of time that we do out there on patrols doing our thing, and so you get to know these people.
Yep. So that working the rest of the evening, I remember working until it was dark to sort everything out, changing tires on a Hummer, because it got metal in the tire and went flat, and so I had to do that on the fly. And I remember coming back to camp that night, and the two explosions that we heard off in the distance after the police station was hit was another V-bid hitting the back corner of our camp, and a second V-bid behind it that was a semi-tanker rigged to explode, following it up. Fortunately for the majority of the camp, the HESCO barrier baskets held it all back and kept them from being able to actually drive into the camp. We had quite a few pieces of equipment damaged, and 2 soldiers from Thailand's lives were lost in that incident. They were on a corner guard post, as that was their task on the camp that we were on. And unfortunately for them, that night they decided to drop those bombs into that guard post. I remember coming back to the aftermath of that, and it was surreal. We had these at this point in time, we had graduated to these kind of fiberboard metal frame trailers that we were living in. And the concussion from that had blown the walls in on a lot of these trailers. And, at this point in time in the deployment, we had power, and we had managed to get to the PX, and people were buying TVs for their free time so they could play some video games or something when they had a moment of downtime. And I mean, TVs were shattered from the concussion, and the whole place was a disaster. And we had to pick it all back up, and because we still had a couple more months left on this deployment.
Yeah, that's crazy how you have your area that you live in, and you don't expect for that what happens on the street. You don't generally expect it to come to where you're sleeping at night, but more times than none it does come to where you sleep at night. So that's a good point, Duckie.
Yeah. So the remainder of the deployment after that was pretty uneventful. There was a few things here and there that went off, but nothing major. We did quite a few more patrols around town, and then we packed it all up to head back home, head down to Kuwait, and enjoy 2 weeks of sun and fun, sitting down in Kuwait, waiting to come back to America. It was nice to finally wind down a little bit and relinquish the weapons and not have to carry that stuff around wearing full gear all the time. They had a little morale, welfare, recreation facility down there called the Crystal Palace. It was on the beach, and you could go swimming, or they had pool tables, shoot some pool, and just kind of relax. We had a movie theater down there, and so we got to go see some movies finally, and just enjoy a little bit of what normal life was like again. So we'd spend our days getting up and head over to the PX and maybe grab some breakfast, and food court, and go catch a movie, and and get everything ready to clear customs and come back to America.
So what was kind of the how your unit, how was the morale of your unit as y'all were starting to make that transition back stateside?
It was at that point in time, I believe everybody was ready to go home. We did what we came to do. We completed our mission that was put in front of us, and it was our time to rotate back. Everybody was ready to go see their families again. And obviously the whole time we were there, you wanted to go back home, but it was great that it was finally coming around, that it was our turn to go back. I remember getting back home, and we actually flew directly back into Fort Campbell, and when we stepped off the plane, all of our families were there for us, and so we got to greet everybody, and then go right back to work the next morning and start doing in processing back from being over in Iraq, getting shots and getting caught up on medical records and doctor visits and dentist visits and things of that nature. We squeezed a couple weeks of leave in there for everybody, and then shortly after that was over, reporting back to 194 and getting ready to gear up for training again.
To kind of resort back into getting back into road duties.
Yes. So we're going to go back to doing a little bit of stateside military police garrison style work. We got to get everybody caught up on certificates and things of that nature. Get the training caught back up. As Josh can tell you, one of the most enjoyable things of being a military police officer is the day that you get certified to use pepper spray, because for some reason it's necessary to spray you in the face with pepper spray before you use it. So it really circulates around to, if you're ever in an incident where you're going to use pepper spray, it's very, very highly likely that you're going to get it on yourself. And
definitely.
you need to understand how this is going to affect you, so you can maintain your bearing. And I tell you, if you can withstand that stuff, more power to you, because that was awful, man. It was awful.
Yeah, getting pepper sprayed sucks.
Yes. I remember after we got sprayed, one of our lieutenants was like, "Oh God, why do we do this to people?"
This is inhumane.
Oh,
it's
man.
not really. So,
But go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So we go back and do a couple patrol missions, or patrol cycles around, a little bit of field training here and there. We're set to get a new drill sergeant, or I'm sorry, not drill sergeant, platoon sergeant. And you'll understand why I made that slip in a second. So, everybody's anxious to meet the new platoon sergeant and who it is. And I'm digging for the info myself, and I get a name. And I'm like, oh no, that was my drill sergeant. So it turns out one of my drill sergeants from basic is going to be our new platoon sergeant. And obviously, I'm not a big fan of that. Nothing against them individually. Just I don't have pleasant memories of them. They were screaming at me all the time. So a position comes down for the sergeant major's driver for battalion, and I've done a deployment. I've seen that. I want to do something different now. So I signed up to be the sergeant major's driver to check this out and see what this is about. And basically, if you've ever done that job or had a driver, you would know that consists of driving the sergeant major around places. Did that for quite a few weeks, and cycled out of that and moved on to being just a member of the colonel's security team. This is what I got instructed was we were going to stand up was a security team for the colonel, because the battalion is getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan, and I was going to be a part of that. And that's when I met Fisher here and our other buddies that were on the team with us, and we get ready to deploy out to Afghanistan.
It was a fun time.
So, and I'm sure over the course of this podcast, the story of us in Afghanistan will get told through Fisher. But, obviously Afghanistan was a completely different animal from Iraq. What is essentially just the distance of a couple states in America is a completely different world over there.
Definitely.
And it was eye-opening that everything that I learned in Iraq now does not necessarily apply to Afghanistan. They don't even speak the same language. you know. So that was a whole new experience, especially with no longer working like a patrol shift. Now we're being a security team for the colonel, so that he can go and attend different meetings with different police chiefs or government officials around Afghanistan to work on what their needs are and how can the military help them achieve them.
Yeah, I like to see. Well, and almost every battalion commander goes out there, and the nice thing is they influence the battlefield much greater than we can. They actually make it easy on us, but they take our information and they try to influence the leaders of those areas so that they can influence the populace and make it easy. It's a big cycle, man, and you've noticed, especially in Afghanistan, one thing goes wrong and that balance is tipped, and it's almost like a house of cards that falls apart.
Absolutely.
And you got to rebuild that trust, and the battalion commander is the key to that. He is the key. He's the fulcrum that makes that possible. Without him, it doesn't work. But I could give numerous situations of it, but I can also give some where they didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw the way their battlefield looked. Their area of operation was disastrous.
Yes. Yeah. I couldn't even imagine the immense amount of pressure doing that job. What rides in the balance on the decisions that you make. That's wild. My job was very, very simple. It was scan the area and make sure that the colonel gets to this place safe and gets back to the base safe. Very simple job.
From my perspective, I was his driver, and Duckie, or John was he was our gunner, and from my perspective, Colonel Hayes, he did a bang up job. He
did. He was, I can only hope to be as good a man as Colonel Hayes was.
I know, right? Hey, what was he? He was like 50. And a stud, ran like a 12-minute 2 mile.
I remember that man doing 101 push-ups on his PT test and getting up with time left because we were the 101st Airborne Division.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, sir, can you carry me on your back and still run a 12-minute mile, 2 mile? And he's just like, I might be able to do that. And I was like, all right, we need to do that, sir.
Yeah. But let's touch on what you said about how Afghanistan's a house of cards and things can just fall apart, right? Because the most memorable thing from Afghanistan for me was the $5 firefight incident.
Oh my goodness!
Right? And this was us trying to do the right thing and it completely blowing up on us. So on Bagram, there was a creek around the backside of it that ran through Bagram Air Base, and we had there was a chain link fence that was blocking this off. Well, as water would rush down this creek, leaves and debris and everything would get caught in this fence, and there was farmland out on the back of the base in Bagram that was getting flooded by this creek now that's got this dam building up at the fence, and we had issues with the locals coming up to the fence and trying to clean it out. Obviously, we didn't want them right next to the fence for, security reasons. So we get out there and we actually talk to them one day, and they explain to us the problem that they're having with this. And we work it out with them, and we're like, look, okay, you're going to give us a list of people. This is what I understand was worked out was you're going to give us a list of people, and they're going to be allowed to come up here and clean this out. And we're going to do it for about $5 a day or something of that nature. I think we're going to pay them to do it. Problem solved, right? Everybody's going to be happy. Wrong. Apparently, we did not talk to the village elder. There are 2 tribes in that village, and the other tribe did not appreciate that they got that this other group got the contract, and they were ready to fight to the death over it. So we wake up that morning to gunfire just going off, and I remember waking up and hearing the gunshots, and everybody in the Fisher and Crowder and Hall, Wilkinson, Heisman, and all them guys, they were this was their first deployment around. And I remember them waking up, jumping to, and grabbing everything, and me just like kind of grabbing my covers and pulling them back over my head, and like, no, I just want to sleep. they're not shooting at us, guys. I can tell. And so we get up and we get ready, and we're kind of like just basically peeking up over the HESCO barriers because this is right out back of our camp, and we're just observing. And that was when we learned about the whole incident. We actually load up in our trucks and drive around outside of the camp and go around to the village and had a talk with them and believe we came to an agreement so that they would stop shooting at each other over the whole deal. But that is how quickly things can go south when you just try to do the right thing and you don't do it the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and it kind of gives you some perspective. That incident gave me a lot of perspective. You know, it's like, I mean, these guys are willing to kill each other for $5 a day. You know, I mean, I didn't think about that for a very long time. You know, as far as like, wow. You know, it's like, how do you fight that?
Yeah, I think the thing people forget is that everybody everywhere in the world is trying to survive. And, you know, $1 over here for somebody, you know, might not be a big deal, but $1 for somebody else in another place is the difference between their family surviving and their family dying. You know, and they'll fight for it. It's a different perspective on life all the way around, especially Afghanistan, because they're not going to have skyscrapers, they're not going to have Teslas anytime soon. So when you get there, it's like you're going back in time, but it's almost like it's a simpler time. You know, I kind of miss that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about missing it. Let's talk about Afghanistan and Iraq both being extremely beautiful countries. You know, some of the countryside in Iraq is just green and lush when you're heading up around Babylon. And I remember going to Babylon City itself. And you want to talk about, you know, surreal experiences and things that are much bigger than you. Going to take a tour of Babylon City and standing in Alexander the Great's throne room, you know, or you know, it's one of the pictures I shared. I'm standing next to a statue of a lion that is supposed to depict, you know, Daniel fighting the lions. We walked down and walked into the lion's den where they actually threw Daniel to the lions. You know, it's history dating back to long before our country was ever even thought of. You know, it was crazy to see that. Just to stand in that, it was amazing. You know,
yeah, like John was saying, when you check the post for this episode, there's pictures on there, and there's pictures of John there with that lion, Daniel and the lion there. It's pretty cool. You can tell. Here's the thing: John's not. He's not an old man. He's not. But when he says he got into the game young, he did, because the pictures he gave us are actual pictures. They're not like from a digital camera. They're like pictures of pictures or scans, right?
Yeah. Digital cameras weren't a thing.
Yeah.
You know, actually, those were taken on a regular disposable Kodak camera, and I threw them in a bag and really didn't think about it for a long time after Iraq. And then one day I was going through some stuff, and I knew what they were pictures of. And I was like, you know, I think it's time that I finally get around to developing these pictures and take a look back and remember, you know, what it was like over there. And you know, so that's why I got them all developed. And it was crazy seeing them all again, because it had been so long that you know, it was like seeing a slideshow from a vacation that somebody took. In another lifetime.
Did you recognize yourself?
Yeah. I mean, but you know, I look like a little kid.
I was looking at one of our photos when we were in Afghanistan. I think we were in the chow hall or something, and me and you were sitting right next to each other. And I'm just like, God dang, we were kids.
Man, we were.
It's crazy.
Hey, John, make sure you send us, as soon as we're done here, send us like a current picture of you so we can add that to it too.
Absolutely.
So people can see the difference.
Absolutely.
because the big thing is, it's we grow up. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy because you spend so much time with young people being in the service, you forget that you get old. But
Yeah.
we'll let people see the before and after.
Well, I think that since we're talking about Afghanistan, there's an incident that I don't think that we should not talk about, and that is when we were out in Shindan when Staff Sergeant Cooley.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we went into Bagram at first in Afghanistan. Shortly after that, we got orders to run out to Western Afghanistan. This place called Shindan. It was an old Russian Air Force base, just complete like graveyard for MiGs, completely surrounded by like Palm Z mines. But it was an airfield, and for some reason, they wanted MPs to go out there and run this airfield. So we got to go out there and handle this business. We had a company of MPs assigned to us. What was the MP company that was assigned to us, Pedro?
They were out of Germany. I'm trying to remember their name. Because the outgoing unit was leaving. They were from Fort Polk, I think.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
What is it?
We could look it up. Anybody who's interested to know could absolutely look it up while I'm talking here. Unfortunately, not everything worked out all that great in Shindan for us. We did have an incident where a improvised explosive device was set up and targeted it at a route that we were known to come down. I do believe that night that we had a vehicle get stuck somewhere, and we sent a Hummer out to go, assist with it. They also got stuck, and a third vehicle was en route to render assistance, and that third vehicle came down the same route. And unfortunately, between then and there, either somebody had managed to plant the explosive, or the first two vehicles were just lucky and missed it altogether. And the Hummer struck the improvised explosive. I believe it was an anti-tank mine.
It was two of them. Stacked on top of each other.
So it struck it in the rear passenger side of the Hummer, and pretty much just completely destroyed the Hummer. I remember the gunner, being told that the gunner was ejected out of the Hummer, and he made it through it. He managed to get everybody that was still there, help render aid and get in contact with everybody and assist. But unfortunately, Staff Sergeant Cooley, he did not make it through his injuries that he sustained from that bomb. And so now I'm on a second deployment, and now we have to deal with another loss of life, which was obviously, again, it was heartbreaking. I being detached from this company, this company wasn't out of Fort Campbell. They weren't part of the 716th MP Battalion back at Fort Campbell. But, and I don't even believe that I had even met Staff Sergeant Cooley at any point in time before this happened.
They were in their RIP process. I think they'd been there for about 3 days or so. It's a very, very short amount of time. I mean,
yeah. And, so we got the call back, and we had to load up and get with the colonel and drive out and go investigate what went on out here. And I remember us leaving out early in the morning. It was still dark outside. And when we showed up to the location, the Hummer was sitting there. Obviously, everybody had been medevaced out and taken care of that needed to be taken care of. And we were discussing, what are we going to do with this vehicle? And it was we're just going to leave it here, and we'll come back with a wrecker, and try to tow it off. And so we go back to camp for a couple hours and get things sorted up and drive back out there.
We brought the brigade commander with us, didn't we?
I believe so, yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
And in the short couple hours that the sun came up and we made it back out to this truck, there was hardly anything left. It was a stripped down frame, pretty much.
They drug it off.
And he drug it off. the next time around, they drug the thing off. They just completely freaking salvaged it and got it down for scrap metal.
But there was a, not even 500 meters away, there was a Russian armored personnel carrier still sitting there.
They don't want no Russian shit.
It's just like, that kind of blew my mind. I was just like,
Yeah.
hold on. Like,
No?
you're going to take that?
Well, you remember we had that fuselage of that big plane that was on the camp, and these guys were braving these landmines to come onto this camp before we had ever moved in there. You know, they were coming onto this camp and salvaging metal off these aircraft that were on the camp. They were walking through landmines to get there.
Yeah.
And
Gotta survive.
so we had set something up for them to get this fuselage of this aircraft towed off of the camp, and sat in a location where they could freely come and go and cut the metal off of it. And I don't think it took them a couple of weeks to just completely gut that thing down to nothing. You know, it was pretty wild.
Yeah, Afghanistan was it was a unique experience.
I won't lie, gentlemen. I did not enjoy Iraq one bit.
I didn't.
Not one single bit. But I did 3 tours in Afghanistan, and I loved every single one of them. I don't say love as in like I enjoyed them much greater than I did Iraq. Much greater.
I would agree with you.
I didn't like being in vehicles. I liked to walk. I liked aircraft that dropped me off in the middle of some place that was hot, and we just go and work. I did not like driving. My feet weren't made for it. My brain is made to like operate my feet. I'm genetically built that way to operate on the ground.
You used to being the foot soldier.
Knuckle dragger, love it.
I was genetically designed to operate in the vehicle in the air conditioning. That's what it seemed to be.
The air conditioners never worked. Come on now.
Yeah,
Realize-
they did.
Well,
Yeah, they
all
did.
right. The Colonel's vehicle,
It was
did
better.
work.
Yeah, the Colonel's vehicle. Let's be real about the Colonel's vehicle and showing up. You know, everybody remembers the stories of like how hard it was to get equipment for some of the units and things out there, but showing up to Afghanistan and literally getting a brand new Hummer.
Yeah.
Like how awesome was that?
It was surprising.
Like still had the plastic on it, brand new.
I left the plastic. We left the plastic on the seats.
Yeah. Like that was probably like one of the greatest presents from the military for a deployment was this fresh, brand new Hummer. Oh, it was nice.
Remember, we get the Humvee up, coming back from, what was it? Not Kabul, back to Bagram. Was it Kabul?
Mm-hmm.
And we would drive because it was a downhill drive on the way back from Kabul, and you could get the Humvee up to about 70 miles an hour.
That's dangerous.
I know, but that was our job was to
Speed is a weapon.
get there. We only rolled 2 trucks in Afghanistan whenever we were there. It was.
Yeah.
That was it. We were short, light, and but granted, our trucks, we carried so much weapons. We had everything. It was ridiculous. The inspection alone was like a 2-hour ordeal to go through all the munitions and everything. But
that talking about all the stuff we had, that was one of the a very wild experience was coming back from Iraq. We came back the very beginning of April, because we left the very beginning of April to go there. We come back in the following year, the very beginning of April, and my birthday is not for another 20 days. I'm 20 years old 20 years old, about to turn 21, but just come back from Iraq, and I can't have a beer. Like, y'all just gave me hand grenades and rocket launchers, and I can't have a beer.
they should definitely look at that.
Yep.
So, given all your experiences from both deployments and being in the military, what was the most challenging?
Really, the physical aspect of it. The military is physically demanding. You will do stuff. They will break you down to the point where, like, some days you just can't walk to recover from it. Be it running 12-mile road marches down at Fort Campbell to prepare for air assault standards. You know, you got to do that 12-mile road march in under 3 hours?
It was 3 hours, 3-hour time limit.
You know, and then we're going to get up early and do that road march, and then we're going to work a full duty day afterwards. You're beat by the end of the day. You're done. I would say that right there was probably the worst of it, because, you know, everything else with the military, if you're wearing the right thing, if you show up and you follow directions, you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the military, is they for the most part, if you do the right thing, you will make advancements in your career and you will be rewarded for it.
Right place, right time, right uniform.
I think anybody, even if you weren't in the military, you can learn from that. It's like, if you show up, you will be successful.
Absolutely. You show up and you try your hardest. You know, out in the civilian world, I've seen the same characteristics with people. You show up and you try your hardest, and man, it'll be appreciated. And that's one of the things that the military instills in you, and it's helped me be successful once I got out, is you know, showing up, being dependable, and just trying my hardest. You don't have to be the best all the time, but as long as you're trying, and people will see it and they notice it, especially you know, out in the civilian world with other veterans that I've run into. They recognize it.
That's a good network. That's a good point, is to, you know, it's like veterans will always be able to recognize each other, and if you have contact with one and they're in a position or something, they know where you're coming from. They know that you have a certain type of training background. There's a standard to which you're accustomed to, and they know that they can rely on that. And I wish, my goal ultimately is for our civilian employers to kind of grasp that hey, people that were in the military can be go-getters if you give them the opportunity. And it's just cultivating our population to ensure their successfulness.
I remember, you know, one of my recent jobs, the last job that I was at, working in IT now, I bumped into, you know, a director over my department. And the first day that I met him, we were chit-chatting, and I told him, you know, I was in the military, and he asked me what I did, and I told him I was an MP, and he was like, oh, me too, you know, me too. And he's like, where were you stationed at? And I was like, well, I went to Korea. He's like, you know, what unit? And it turns out that we were both in the 188. You know, he did it in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I did it in the 2000s. But, you know, he knew. He knew right there at that point that he knew what to expect out of me. He knew what kind of a product he was getting out of this employee, because I'm going to be able to tell this guy something. He's going to listen. He's going to follow directions. He's going to follow a system that we've set forth, and he's going to get it done.
Yep.
Those are wise words.
Hey, John, I got a question for you, man. You know, and the big thing is, you know, we're always looking out for veterans, you know, so having you here on the show, you know, where are you at right now? You know, where you're at in life, you know, in your career, with your family, you know, with your service completed, you know, where are you at right now? Tell us about that, man.
All right, so we didn't cover, you know, me getting out, but unfortunately, my body was not built for the physical aspects of military service, and I got some back issues coming along with, you know, my L5 vertebrae and pain down my legs from my sciatic nerve. That kind of put it into my service, so I jumped out. No longer was I really directed towards being a police officer. I decided to use my GI Bill and try to get some kind of an education, and I wound up going into IT work. IT work is a very good field for veterans, because it's very detail oriented. It's setting up tasks and following a set task, you know, especially when you're dealing with configurations of multiple systems. You're doing them all right. Sure, everything is dress. It translates very well. What I've done now is I pretty much self-taught myself. Redundancy, but anyway, pretty much taught myself quite a bit about a couple different pieces of software, and I'll now do server infrastructure and virtualization for a very large company. So basically, my job is to keep all that running, keep that hardware serviceable. Whenever we have issues with the hardware, get in contact with the vendor, get warranty claims taken care of, replace parts in these servers, and keep everything chugging along.
Yeah, I would invite any veteran out there that's thinking about going into this field to give John a call.
Absolutely. You guys can find me on Facebook. Send me a message if you need any advice of where to start. What kind of certifications you can do. These are things that you can learn to do on your couch at home in your own free time for minuscule amounts of money.
Yeah, John, I think that's a big deal, man, because a lot of people, especially like me, I went in as a, as infantryman, and, got out of the Marine Corps as a recon Marine, and then, with the Army, there's no job that's translatable out here, really, other than like assassin or, or security guard. Contractor, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the thing is, you have to keep your options open, and I think what you were saying about what the service gave you was literally that drive. And the thing is, you prove the point that every veteran out there needs to realize is you were thrown to the wolves a lot of times in your short or long time in the military, and you survived. It didn't kill you. The reason that worked is because of necessity. And the thing is, if you tell yourself that, hey, it is necessary for me to survive, you will achieve. And I think the big thing is that, it's veterans supporting veterans. It's civilians out there that are in the ability, have the ability to get behind veterans with jobs and give them the chance to to really get inside their organization and give it that spark that it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, hey, reach out to John, man. I'm telling you, he did it the right way. So talk to him and get his story and start replicating. I'm telling you, his kit bag, just like all of ours, is open. Take what you need.
I talk to John all the time. I'm always going to call you Duckie till the end of time. I talk to John all the time, and he's always telling me about it, like stuff that he's doing at work, and he is. I would say he's an expert. I mean, at least in my eyes, because I don't have any knowledge of the technical end of computers and stuff like that. So,
hey, if you're a veteran out there that's thinking like John is, get with them. You guys can start your own company. I'm telling you, veteran owned and operated. That's the way to roll. Break that time and money scale, and then go out there and help other veterans, giving them jobs. Well, we're going to go into safety brief.
I think safety brief is in order.
John, do you have any favorites from your safety briefs, your time in service?
I stole one of yours last episode.
No, honestly, I believe we had very few safety briefs.
Well, what would you give? What would you give to your team members right now if they're listening to the show? You just want them to have a nice weekend. Throw them something.
A military police style safety brief. The weekend's coming around, guys, and let's make sure that Monday morning we have the same head count we have today, and please, if you're going to go out this weekend and have a good time, have a sober battle buddy, or take a cab.
Good point.
Please. I lost a very, very good friend that served with me in a drunk driving accident that he was not at fault at. So please, if you're going to go out and have a good time, get a sober drive.
Use Uber.
Use that Uber.
Uber saves lives.
Or high crawl, low crawl, 3 to 5 second rush. Josh, what do you got?
Well, with spring break on the horizon, I would say parties are going to be happening. People are going to be out. Make sure that you are diligent in paying attention to your surroundings. You can't always control what other people do, but you can control 100% what you do. And keep your head on a swivel and make sure that you're looking out for each other. Call your battle buddies, call your people, and reach out to them. Make sure everybody's doing all right. And stay safe. And do your homework if you're in school.
Do your homework. Hey, don't beat your dog, don't beat your cat, don't beat your kid or your spouse. Enjoy your spring break block leave for all you students out there. And do PT. Record APFT after the piss test at 0-4, the first day back. But hey, on a serious note, National Veterans Crisis Line, 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255, National Veterans Crisis Line. Hey, if you don't want to call that number, hit us up on Facebook. Call a friend. Call a family member. Call somebody, and just get the words out. All right, get the words out. Let somebody get their arms around you and show you some love, and come on back the next day.
If you send a message to our Facebook, we will respond.
Definitely, very quickly.
We're always looking at it. Me and Chris, we want to hear from you, and we have time. And it doesn't matter what time of the day. One of us will probably answer that. If we don't respond, do the little Facebook call.
Yep, call us on Facebook. Hey, if we got people out there that like the page, if you want to be, if you want to be a page admin where you can answer, messages, and you've got the background where you can help those in need, send us a message so we can update you. So you can actually respond to some of these messages. We might need to pass them over to you for some extra help.
Yeah.
Subject matter experts. There's so many of us out there. There's the barracks lawyer is cool, but professionals. That's what helps. So if you're out there, get up on the net. Let us know. We'll
Yes,
bring
sir.
you in.
Well, Duckie, John.
John, man, I'm glad you came on, dude. I really am.
Yeah, I'm glad I could be here.
You need to get over here to Oklahoma. Come hang out for 2 or 3 days.
I tell him that all the time.
One of these days.
I wanted to thank you, man. As always, it's a pleasure. I'm glad that we stay in contact, man.
Yeah, it's great. It's great that we're able to.
I think that's important. We didn't talk about it. We talked about it a little bit, but like me and him, we play games. We talk almost every day, roughly.
Pretty much.
And that's how we stay in contact. So it's just, I'm glad that we have the opportunity to continue to carry on that relationship, man. And you're doing good things, and we appreciate you, man.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on, John.
Tell your wife I said hi.
Will do.
Hey, everybody. Episode 006 will be next Friday. We're going to be basically doing kind of a run and gun, a little runaway gun. Josh and I are kind of talking about, what we did on spring break.
Yes.
We might have a surprise guest or two. We don't know.
And we're going to record the entire thing on Facebook Live.
Yeah, we're going to try to go live. So we'll see. My barber is leaving the area.
I know. I need to go get a haircut.
And I don't know what 10 days of block leave is going to do for me.
Where do you go to get a haircut?
I go to Chuck the barber.
Chuck the barber.
Chuck the barber.
Where's he at?
Well, he was down here on the strip, but he moved out by the old Walmart. But he's getting ready to move to Athens, Georgia. So, John, if you need to get a haircut, go to Athens, Georgia, and see Chuck the barber.
All right.
He'll give you a good cut. Tell him Chris sent you.
All right.
Or the person that talks about space trips to Mars every time he cuts my hair. I give him my take on space travel to Mars. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Well, John, you have a lovely day. I'll be talking to you later, man.
All right, brother.
Yep. Be safe, John. Everyone out there, be safe. And, hey, hug a veteran. Hug a Veteran Day. It's good for you. Just don't hug me.
I'm going to give you a big hug.
All right. Peace.
All right, brother.